I'm Heather Tubman-Carbone. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor at the Bureau of Justice Assistance. And today I am joined by my colleague, Andre Bethia, also from BJA, and our colleague, Dr. Sanzana Dean from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. I'm going to start talking, and hopefully the slides will start populating as we go. So I will wait to get into anything too detailed, but I think we can get into some of the overview materials. Here we go. So today we're going to talk about a few different aspects of this opportunity to deliver training and technical assistance. And throughout the webinar, you will see and hear us refer to training and technical assistance as TTA. And as we advance to slide 3, you'll see for a moment we'll have the web address for the solicitation up on the screen in case you'd like to open it up and follow along. Here we go. Okay, so up on your screen now, you can see our agenda for today, and you can see that the solicitation is available at that web address. You can also go to bja.gov and follow the tabs from there to get to funding opportunities. Please note that right now, the deadline for this application is April 28th, 2020. Given current events, deadlines may be extended, and we encourage you to check back regularly for updates. This webinar will have a few different sections. First, I will talk about the overall purpose of the grant program, and then the award details, like amounts and project period. Then I will get into expectations for how the selected applicants will deliver TTA. As you prepare your applications, you'll want to be sure to demonstrate your organization's ability to meet those expectations. Then Sanzana and Andre will walk through details of different categories and additional expectations from each agency that are documented in the solicitation. At the end, we will open up the floor for Q&A. So first, an overview of the SCA program. As many of you may know, BJA and OJJDP award grants to agencies and organizations to provide and improve reentry services with the goal of reducing recidivism. With this solicitation, we are seeking we're seeking 3 TTA providers, and we'll get into the details of each, to support the site-based SCA grantees. Signed in 2008, the Second Chance Act supports state, local, and tribal governments and nonprofit organizations in their work to reduce recidivism and improve outcomes for people leaving incarceration. Since it was signed in 2008, BJA and OJJDP have administered over $400 million in reentry investments across the country. In 2018, the Second Chance Reauthorization Act built on and strengthened the original landmark legislation. BJA's goal in the field of criminal justice is to provide leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support state, local, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. We execute that mission in a number of ways, including by providing funding for technical assistance to support these local, state, and tribal efforts. Together with OJJDP, we administer the SCA grants and manage TTA to support grantees in the field. Now I'll turn it over to Sanzana to talk about OJJDP's mission.
Thank you, Heather, and good afternoon, everyone. The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention is glad to partner with the Bureau of Justice Assistance in this work. I'd like to take a moment to speak briefly about OJJDP and our mission for those of you who may not be aware of the work that we do in OJJDP. I have here our mission for you, and I'll speak really briefly about our mission and how we accomplish our goals of that mission. OJJDP actually provides national leadership, coordination, and resources to prevent and respond to juvenile delinquency and victimization. We support efforts of states, tribes, and communities in developing and implementing effective and equitable juvenile justice systems with the goals of enhancing public safety, holding youth appropriately accountable to both crime victims and communities, and empowering youth to live productive, law-abiding lives. There are several active awards and upcoming awards that will be managed through this TTA project, and I look forward to working with BJA to provide a really solid platform of TTA to our grantees in this work. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Heather. Thank you.
Thanks, Susanna. All right, so now we will start to get into the details. As some of you may be aware, if you've looked at this type of solicitation before, we've taken a new approach this year. Historically, we have competed an award for the National Reentry Resource Center, which provided training and technical assistance to all Second Chance Act grantees and also served as a clearinghouse, maintaining a website and some phone lines for the entire field. This year, we have broken the training and technical assistance into 3 buckets, and you can see up on your screen they are divided by content area, and the operation of that sort of umbrella National Reentry Resource Center that serves as the clearinghouse and the website is not being competed in this solicitation. So the 3 categories in this solicitation are training and technical assistance about corrections and community engagement, about education and employment, and in category 3, behavioral health, housing, and family support. Now, for all 3 of these categories, the selected applicant will be providing training and technical assistance to the selected site-based grantees. Those are the state, local, and tribal sites, as well as in category 1, there may be some community-based organizations who receive the awards, as well as providing ad hoc TA and providing information to the field at large. And we'll get into the details of those as we go along. For now, though, I just want to give you a sort of overhead view and remind you that each category serves a different number of grantees and is responsible for a different number of topics, and therefore they're funded at different levels. For Category 1, the Corrections and Community Engagement TTA provider will be responsible for about 140 grantees across 8 different grant tracks. That means 8 different grant programs. So you will have 8 sets of grantees who are pursuing a general goal as well as their individual projects that they proposed and were funded to complete. So that's 8 different grant programs. And additionally, this TTA provider will be charged with developing tools, training, and resources about adult corrections, juvenile justice, adult and juvenile pretrial, and community supervision. Those products will be developed in consultation with OJJDP and BJA. I'll talk more later in this webinar about what you should include to that end in your application. This award category is for up to $2.775 million. The next category, Category 2, will provide training and technical assistance to approximately 20 grantees across 2 programs and will work on, as the title suggests, education and employment. This category will provide an award for up to $425,000. For the third category, behavioral health, housing, and family support TTA, this provider will work with 90 grantees and also address topics as the name implies. This award is for up to $1.8 million. We will be making 1 award per category, and all awards will be for a period of 36 months. The total amount awarded under the solicitation will be about $5 million. BJA and/or OJJDP may provide additional funding in future years to awards made under this solicitation through continuation or supplemental awards. In making decisions regarding those awards, we will consider, among other factors, our strategic priorities, a recipient's overall management of the work, and progress of the award-funded work. And as I'm sure you saw on the solicitation, we define eligibility for this as private and nonprofit organizations and institutions of higher education. That includes tribal organizations and institutions, public and private colleges and universities, and faith-based organizations. Equally important are the qualifications of applicants. Applicants should have demonstrated experience and expertise in the subject matter area for the category to which they are applying. We're also interested in the structure. So, because reentry requires collaboration among multiple service delivery systems, we understand that some applications may come in on behalf of a consortium of providers to represent the diversity of disciplines necessary. So, the structure we're looking for may vary. You may apply as a single entity, as a consortium, or we've also heard the term subrecipients, and you'll see that language in our solicitation. And now we'll talk a bit about our expectations for training and technical assistance. Overall, BJA and OJJDP's expectations for TTA providers are to provide knowledge, resources, and project management guidance to Second Chance Act grantees. Please keep this in mind as you decide whether to apply, and then if you do apply, in developing your proposals. The expectations described in the following slides are not necessarily an exhaustive list of BJA and OJJDP's expectations, but these are the ones we want to highlight for you. These expectations are grounded in our goal of getting grantees to achieve the objectives they defined in their own grant applications. TA providers providing direct assistance to grantees are expected to focus their efforts on assisting the grantees to complete the activities defined in their original proposals on time, on budget, and in line with best practices in the field. To that end, we expect all TTA providers to be grounded in data, research, and best practices. On this slide, you can see a couple of descriptions of what we think that TA might look like. First, we expect the TA coach will be assigned to each grantee. That way, each grantee knows who to contact when they need assistance and has routine interaction with that individual. We also expect TTA providers to develop site-specific TA plans. And you noticed earlier I made the comment, at least I hope you noticed, the comment that we expect TA providers to help grantees complete their proposed projects. For example, that, as you know, in some of these grant programs, we say, for example, all grantees should improve supervision outcomes. And we know that there are evidence-based practices and best practices that we want grantees to align their supervision activities and strategies with. However, every grantee develops, as you all know, their own competitive proposal in order to receive that grant. And within that proposal, they have proposed very specific strategies and activities and a timeline in order to reach that ultimate goal of improving outcomes. So we say site-specific TA plans because our priority is not just to ensure that sites are doing the best that they can in terms of aligning with best practices overall, but really we want each site to be able to meet the goals that they laid out in their individual and original proposal. And so to get to that, one of the things we've done is we require many of the grantees to complete an action plan in their first 6 months. An action plan is basically a tool to help them move from a proposal to getting things, as the name suggests, to getting things off the ground. So it's really a details-oriented process of saying, here are your goals, here's your timeline, who do you need on board, what resources do you need, and what's the order in which you might do things, and then what assistance might you need along the way. One of the first things that a TTA coach will do is to help grantees complete that action plan. TTA providers are also expected to assess progress and performance over the grant period. You'll be responsible for reporting that back to BJA and for helping the grantee to move along their timeline. TTA providers will also be expected to host webinars for subsets of grantees and to routinely engage in evaluation activities. Many of the grantees in SCA are required to complete evaluations of their projects. And further, many of them are required to partner with a research partner and a third-party evaluator to complete those. We expect that the TTA provider will help ensure that they work collaboratively with that research partner and that they can produce the evaluation at the end of the grant. The other piece of being a TTA provider in SCA is supporting the field at large. And what that means, the way we define it, is to advance knowledge and practice in specific topics that directly intersect with reentry. In the blue boxes up on your screen, you can see 3 of the activities or 3 of the ways that we have historically seen that happen and that we like. So first, that's hosting topical and solicitation webinars. A topical webinar, as the name implies, would be on a particular topic and would explain to the field using examples, perhaps even inviting grantees on or others in the field on to provide examples of how they have done these things in action and what results they have seen from that. Solicitation webinars are things just like what you're sitting on with us now, are to say, hey, there's a new grant opportunity out in the field. It is one of these SCA grants, which is why the TTA provider would be the one talking about it. And the goal would be to market it and to elicit interest and answer any questions about folks who may apply. Another role of the TTA provider to support the field at large is to respond to ad hoc requests. Now, not all ad hoc responses require extensive response. Some might require referrals to resources or connection with other agencies for collaboration. A limited number will require more thorough exploration and response. Awardees will work under the guidance of BJA and OJJDP staff to propose and conduct activities that advance the requirements under each of these categories. And that includes determining how to respond to ad hoc requests, and also the third blue box, proactively building knowledge and capacity. Generally, building knowledge and capacity falls into one of 4 categories for us: synthesizing research, developing tools and materials, convening focus groups or panels, and disseminating resulting products. So the 2 roles, being a TTA provider to the Second Chance Act grantees and providing, advancing the field at large, they really come together in what we think of as being stewards of the SCA grant programs. The job is to tell the story of the grant program, provide subject matter expertise, and collaborate with the National Reentry Resource Center and other SCA TTA providers on things such as conferences, on publications, to disseminate lessons learned from the grantees or having found useful models in the field. And you'll notice the second bullet on the screen, or I'm sorry, the second box, is the staff reentry events. We do not at this time have any conferences planned, but as some of you may have attended in the past, we have hosted Second Chance Act conferences and other smaller reentry events. The role of the TTA providers here would be to provide subject matter expertise, deliver needed administrative and logistical support, and of course to continue collaborating with the other SCA TTA providers, the NRC, and BJA and OJJDP. Another role of the SCA TTA providers is performance monitoring and evaluation collaboration. The 4 boxes you see on your screen are really sort of the 4 big buckets that activities in this category will fall into. The first one is participating in BJA and OJJDP-led grant performance reviews. And you'll see the box beside that is to identify and explain trends. The Second Chance Act grantees, the site-based ones that you would provide training and technical assistance to, are required to report performance measures. Those include data like number of individuals served, number who complete a program, number who do not successfully complete a program, types of services received, and other such statistics. Over time, BJA and or OJJDP may lead a grant performance review where we would sit down and review the numbers. At that time, TTA providers insights as to why numbers are trending in one direction or another, why people are being more or less successful in these programs. All of that kind of conversation is something that we would bring to the TTA provider and really expect some great insights because you are the folks that will be closest to the people reporting on these performance metrics, to those grantees. Another thing we would lean heavily on TTA providers for is recommending strategies to improve performance. As I said earlier, the role of the TTA provider in general is to help the grantees align with best practices and complete the activities in pursuit of their stated goals in their applications. Naturally, over time, grantees will run into challenges, and cohorts as a whole will run into challenges because the field changes, or we have current events such as what we're currently dealing with. And we look to TA providers to be a go-to for those grantees, to let them know how to stay on track, get back on track, and to understand what others in the field are doing that might help them improve their own performance. And the last thing you see on here is to collaborate with other TTA providers. I think the most common activity for that under this solicitation will be within these three categories that we're competing. We'll be coordinating with each other and with the National Reentry Resource Center. And the reason that's so important, just to be crystal clear, is that sometimes we have grantees or we have a jurisdiction who receive multiple grants at the same time. And so it could be that there are either competing priorities, there's overlap between folks on the two different grants, or maybe even better, there's an opportunity for the two to work together to advance one or both of their goals. And so that's where we really appreciate the collaboration and the bringing folks together. Just one additional administrative note here. Anyone awarded under this solicitation will be required to submit a detailed work plan for approval by the BJA program manager within 30 days of the award. At that time, the program manager will provide guidance on what topics should be included in the work plan and will be available to advise and answer any questions. Next, we're going to talk about each of these categories individually. We'll follow the same format to talk about each one, and the format should ring familiar as it reflects the solicitation. First, we'll give an overview of the purpose of the TTA category. Then we'll talk about the site-based TTA under that specific category, noting the grant programs that are included. And then lastly, we'll talk about how TTA providers, in that category are expected to advance knowledge about specific topics. So first up, naturally, is Category 1, Corrections and Community Engagement. Overall, the purpose of this TTA category is to serve as the provider to address adult corrections, juvenile justice, pretrial, and community supervision. In terms of providing TTA to grant programs, you see up on your screen, there are 8 different grant programs that will fall under this category. Most of them will have multiple cohorts of grantees based on year. So for example, the first light blue box, Innovations in Reentry Initiative, is a longstanding grant program. In fact, some of you may have heard of it as the Adult Demonstration Project, and it was sort of the original Second Chance Act grant program. There are multiple years of that award, and we consider each year a cohort. And naturally, they will be at different points in their project, and the TTA provider is expected to meet grantees where they are and bring them along and help them get to completion. Now you'll notice there are 2 different color boxes on your screen. This will be the same throughout the 3 different categories. The lighter colored boxes are the BJA or adult grant programs, and the darker blue boxes are the OJJDP or juvenile reentry grant programs. Now the second prong of TTA for each category is assistance to the field. And again, this is where the provider will work with BJA and or OJJDP to develop and provide tools, training, and resources aimed at reducing recidivism. So the 3 categories here are adult corrections, juvenile justice, and pretrial and community supervision. Now, at this time, BJA and OJJDP are not specifying the particular tools, training, or resources to be developed. We are looking, though, in proposals for 2 things. We're looking for the applicant to propose what form and what content these might entail, but also we're looking for flexibility to work with us over the course of the award to address needs that arise from the field. And now I'm going to turn things over to my colleague Andre to talk about categories 2 and 3.
Thanks, Heather, and greetings to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Andre Bethia, And as Heather stated earlier, I'm a policy advisor here at BJA. Moving along in this presentation, Category 2 focuses on education and employment TTA provider. BJA and OJJDP, well in this case just BJA, will direct this awardee to serve as the primary TTA provider to address correctional education and employment. Of course, it's the smallest funded category because you only have, for now, 2 programs. The Adult Reentry and Employment Strategic Planning and Implementation Program, which currently has 11 grantees, as well as the new Careers Grant, which is Comprehensive Adult Reentry Education and Employment to Reduce Recidivism Strategies Program, Careers, which is currently also live. The TTA to the field for Category 2 would be to work with BJA to develop and provide tools, training, and resources aimed at reducing recidivism. So for education, to improve correctional education and other programs to prepare offenders for meaningful careers in order to increase their employability upon release, as well as employment, which is to improve the work readiness of reentering inmates and fair chance hiring practices to receive them. And the last category, Category 3, the TTA provider will be for behavioral health, housing, and family support. BJA and OJJDP will direct this awardee to serve as the primary TTA provider to address behavioral health, housing, and family support. So for a moment, I want to take the time to pretty much unpack some of this as we talk about TTA to the site-based grantees. So behavioral health, we're looking at to increase the adoption of evidence-based practices to improve access to services and treatment for people in reentry with substance use and mental health disorders. As you can see with the improving reentry for adults with co-occurring substance use and mental health disorders on the BJA side. Housing, address the challenges that people in reentry face in securing stable and affordable housing. So you can see that on the BJ side as well, you see the Pay for Success initiative, the particular category that deals with outcomes-based contracting to lower homelessness. And on the OJJDP side, you see much of the family supports where you're talking about addressing the needs of incarcerated parents with minor children, as well as strengthening relationships between young mothers and their children. And now, before I talk about the application process, I already went over the different areas, and I'll just explain the family supports to inform correctional facilities, family members, and others to maintain connections and improve family engagement with youth and adults post-release. So Category 3 needs to hit behavioral health, housing, and family supports for OJJDP as well as BJA grants. And now I'll talk about the application process. The solicitation outlines all elements of the application in a section called Application and Submission Information. On page 9, you'll see it, on page 9 of the solicitation. And there's a checklist at the end of the solicitation that we recommend you use to ensure you've included all required items. Please note there are specific forms for several of these items. Many of these are standard across BJA and OJJDP solicitations, but there are a few requirements that are unique to the TTA solicitations, and to this one in particular. Those are in the top right of your screen: the timeline, resumes, and position descriptions of key staff, MOUs or letters of support from partners, documentation of past TTA delivery, and a list of proposed subrecipients. These materials are critical to our review process to understand your ability to meet our expectations for TTA delivery as described earlier in the webinar. Now we're going to look at the review criteria. When we review your application, including the peer review process, different weight is given to each section of the narrative and supporting materials. The requirements for each section are detailed in the solicitation, so please review closely. Sometimes it's a 5-point difference, sometimes it's a 10-point difference. You'll also see how the attachments like timelines and resumes are counted towards particular sections of your proposal. There are some additional resources available to applicants, particularly those who are new to the process. BJA created a grant application education webinar series found at the link listed, which can help walk you through the process of applying for a BJA award. 2 previously recorded webinars designed to assist potential applicants interested in applying for BJA funding opportunities. BJA Grant Application Education Series, Funding Opportunities for Your Community in 2020. I am one of the presenters, and I do recommend this message. Resources, recommended resources on the web. These are just some additional resources you might consider accessing as you work through your application. The links are listed here, and as Heather said at the beginning, this webinar will be made available on the BJA website. Back to you, Heather.
Thanks, Andre. Lastly, you'll see up on your screen some important contacts. The first is grants.gov for application submission technical assistance, and the other is for the National Criminal Justice Reference Service. And this is really for questions about the content of the solicitation. We strongly encourage you to contact them as early as possible if you run into any issue. And now we're going to move into the question and answer portion of this webinar. Please type any questions you have into the Q&A box on your screen. As a reminder, you'll see I've again posted the link to the solicitation, and applications are due on April 28th. Please, just a friendly reminder, continue to check back on our website. Given current events, the deadline may be extended. We'll wait a moment to allow questions to continue coming in. The first couple of questions I have here are about, let's see, one is about budget and one is about being included on multiple applications. The first question, is the award amount per category total for all 3 years? And if so, should the budget for the first year be 1/3 of the amount? So a couple great questions in here and a fair amount to unpack. So first, as we said earlier, 36-month award period for each TTA award. So each successful applicant will have a 3-year award, and when you apply for your category, your budget should reflect the full 3 years. The 3 years worth of funds do not have to be evenly divided over all 3 years, but rather should reflect the planned activities. So for example, in the first year, it might take a bit more to ramp up and to get every TA coach on the line with their grantees to initiate that contact, to get sorted to the right folks with each site, and to help them get those action plans approved within 6 months. It's a bit of a push in the beginning. So the touch then might be heavier than it is, say, at the very, very end as things are wrapping up. Either way, your proposed budget should reflect the work that you are writing up in your narrative. Next question. Could an applicant go for prime on one and sub on another? Again, another great question. I want to break down some of the terminology here. So anybody who wants to apply for one or more categories should absolutely go ahead. There is no rule preventing anyone from applying for more than one category. Additionally, somebody may apply, or any organization may apply for a single category in two different ways, meaning somebody could be the lead applicant on one application and could also be a subrecipient on another application within the same category. So I know there's sort of a lot here because we've got the 3 different categories. So if any of that is not clear, please go ahead and type a follow-up question into the Q&A box. I hope this is all making sense, and I hope our connection is hanging in there for everyone. I'm not seeing any additional questions at this time, so I'm going to give us another moment. Andre, Sanzana, have any questions come to you prior to the webinar that you want to share with the group?
Hi, Heather.
Yeah.
No, I have not received any questions at this time.
And I was going to say the same, Heather, no questions.
Okay. Well, in that case, I will just reiterate a couple of things, and then we will wrap up. First thing, as a reminder, in order to apply, you must register with grants.gov. If you haven't already done that and you're certain you're going to apply, I recommend you go ahead and make that happen sooner rather than later. The other thing is when you're going in to register to apply, make sure when you submit your application that you've identified the proper category. We will be reviewing applications by category so that folks are competing against others who are looking for the same, for funding to complete the same exact activities. And it is very, very important that you select the proper category and that your application reflects the requirements of your category. Please feel free to apply for more than one category, and you may be the prime applicant or a subrecipient on more than one application. That means you can apply for multiple categories, or be within a single category, you can apply as the prime recipient and then be on another application as a subrecipient. Just be sure that they're not the same application, swapping who is in which role. I think we've got a couple questions coming in. Great question. Is the expectation that the applicant would name all consultants in their application, or would BJA, OJJDP expect to have input on the consultants? This one is a yes and yes, if I can be so bold. When an application comes in, we will be looking to make sure that all of the requirements are addressed. Therefore, if you think back to earlier slides about expectations for the TTA providers, all subjects should be covered. You should have all areas of expertise covered and all of the necessary skill sets covered, and that may be within your organization or with a consultant who would be a subrecipient. Those individuals should be named. It should be crystal clear what you're proposing, what role you are proposing they will play, and so on. That being said, once an award is made, if a new need arises or BJA feels a need is unmet or for other assorted reasons, BJA or OJJDP may make a recommendation that another consultant be brought into the fold. Okay, 2 more questions we've got. As some of you may have noticed, we've got a question here that points to a funding amount that decreased from the time that the solicitation was first posted. Yes, that is true. There are 3 categories. The numbers did change. We noticed an error from posting. The deliverables and the scope within each category has not changed. It was simply a mistake in entering the numbers. Next question. For Category 1, are the 140 grantees including those across multiple cohorts? Absolutely. So the 140 represents all active grantees in that program. All applicants should keep in mind that many of these programs are competed anew in fiscal year 2020, just as the solicitation is, while others may also be coming to a close. So for example, in Category 1, the statewide recidivism reduction grant program is not being competed anew. So that number, which I believe is 6 or 8, will stay as it is. For other programs, however, that are being recompeted, such as the Innovation and Supervision Program, there will be an additional cohort of grantees added based on those who were selected for the fiscal year 2020 awards. Now, simultaneously, an entire year's worth of an entire cohort should also close out. But that's not necessarily a one-to-one because there are cost extensions and other circumstances, even such simple things as a change in the number of awards made from year to year. So that's why we've said throughout the webinar that these are approximate numbers. All right, I don't see any new questions coming in. So with that, I will say thank you to everyone for joining us today on behalf of BJA and OJJDP. We sincerely appreciate your interest in this solicitation, and we hope to see your applications coming in next month. Thank you very much to NTAC for hosting this webinar. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to BJA, and I also recommend taking note just one more time of these important contacts up on the slide, grants.gov for technical issues, and NCJRS for content questions. All right, thank you everyone. Have a great day.